Hello everyone, welcome back to another air regulations lecture. Today we're looking at Annex 15, Aeronautical Information Services. This is chapter 10 in your air regulations book. As part of this annex, we are going to be looking at various publications that are issued by each state. What is the purpose and the differences of each of these publications, and how are they all published in a timely manner so that flight crew and operators receive them in time. And finally, we're going to be seeing how all of this information that is published is delivered to the flight crew before their flights itself. So let's begin. Now, Aeronautical Information Service, what is the purpose? So this annex sets the foundation for all publications that the pilot use, which are provided by the contracting states. India collects, collates, and publishes aeronautical data for the entire territory and the airspace over the high seas that is under our jurisdiction. The purpose here is to ensure the flow of accurate, timely, and reliable aeronautical information that is essential for the safety, regularity, and efficiency of air navigation. And India just does it for our jurisdiction, similar to how each state would be responsible for having an aeronautical information service for their state, for their jurisdiction, and for their territory. Let's take a look at Aeronautical Information Service in India. Here, it is operated by Airport Authority of India. And all of these publications are published on their website where they have collected it and put it together. The headquarters is in New Delhi. As we know, Airport Authority of India has their headquarters in New Delhi. And there are some regional offices which are in Delhi, Chennai, Kolkata, and your Hyderabad also has one, and Mumbai as well. So you have Mumbai, and you also have Hyderabad. Okay. Now, there is one particular publication that is not published by the Airport Authority of India. It is called an Aeronautical Information Circular, or AIC, and the AIC is actually published by DGCA. We'll talk more about this document and what makes it different. But the Aeronautical Information Circular, which is one of those publications, is going to be published and created by the DGCA, while all the other publications will be uh, operated, collected, collated, and published by the Airport Authority of India. We'll start with talking about Aeronautical Information Publication, or AI. Now, this is a publication that is issued by or with the authority of a state that contains aeronautical information of lasting character that is essential to air navigation. Think of this as like the official handbook of a country. It is going to have the primary source of information that flight crews, dispatchers, and aviation authorities are going to be concerned with. All of the rules, the laws, the permanent things that are there for air navigation are contained in the Aeronautical Information publication. This document is published by the Airport Authority of India. Let's take a look at what is the structure of the AIP itself and what all information is included. This is how it is going to be divided. They like to put it in three different parts. You have general, en route, and aerodrome. So you have three different parts, and volume 1 and volume 2 is another classification that they have done. So volume 1 includes general as well as en route, and volume 2 is just the aerodrome part. However, this volume aspect has been removed. It is still mentioned in the book, but it is no longer applied in real world today. What the Airport Authority of India has done is they have just separated it as three parts: general, en route, and aerodrome. In general, you are looking at things like what are the national differences. For example, when we talked about very initially in global bodies, we said that if there are some differences from the ICAO's SARPs, then a state is required to inform within 60 days. They are also required to publish this in their own AIP or their own country's regulations. So here you will see the national differences found under general. Then you have aerodrome charges, parking charges, Met services, what are the location identifiers of all the airports within India, any segments, things like that are there. En route, you have your navigation aids, your prohibited, restricted, and danger areas, your approach procedures, everything concerned with the en route phase of the flight. And finally, with aerodrome, you're going to be concerned with all the aerodrome things that are there, all the aerodrome aspects like the runway orientation, the facilities at aerodrome, the frequencies, met services, watch hours, runway length. And this will be provided for each and every airport that is in India. All right. So, AIP amendment. That is the next thing we're going to look at. What is an AIP amendment? It is a permanent change to the AIP information. So let's write this down. Permanent change to AIP information. Okay. We've made a publication. We've got our aeronautical information publication or our handbook, but things change over time. So we need to make amendments and we need to make changes. So we need to add information and remove information. How does that happen? AIP amendments is one of the ways. So we have AIP amendments and we have AIP supplements. Supplements we'll take a look at next. First, we're looking at AIP amendments. Now, amendments are changes that are permanent in nature. So, for example, some permanent change that is taking place will be added as an amendment. Take, for example, a new navigation aid is added, a change in the airspace boundary, or the addition of a prohibited area. If it is permanent in nature or of lasting character, then it is considered as an AIP amendment. How the AIP amendment is added? Two ways. You usually, if it is a printed document, which Airport Authority of India will maintain a fat little binder of all the, of the hard copy of all the AIP pages and everything. If we have a printed copy, then we use replacement sheets so that it is easy to remove and add to the binder. So instead of having a proper hard binded book or something, you have replacement sheets that can easily be opened, removed, and placed wherever need be. In case we have the digital copy, which is what we mostly will look at, then you can just replace the outdated web pages or PDFs. So replace PDFs, right? Simple as that. Now, as I said, AIP supplements are the other way of adding information. So what if now we have some information that is going to be of a short duration? For example, a short change that can be, let's say, a taxiway is closed for a couple of months, a runway is going to be extended, or a military airspace is being active for some time. Maybe you have a navigation aid that is unserviceable due to maintenance. That information needs to be, again, provided in the AIP supplement so that all operators, all flight crews, all personnel are aware about this change as well. You are adding that through an AIP supplement. An AIP supplement is a temporary change of long duration. When we say long duration, we are actually saying anything greater than 28 days. So, there are two types of AIP supplements. Two types. The first type is the long term, which is greater than, or it is valid, say valid more than 3 months. And then you have short term, which is valid less than 3 months, but obviously has to be greater than 28 days. And your AIP supplements are actually published as a yellow page. So in the printed copy, they will be added as special pages which are yellow in color and directly inserted into the AIP. Therefore, when you look at the binder, you will see a bunch of white pages which are amendments or permanent information already established. And you will see many yellow pages in there. The yellow pages are there to indicate that this is a supplement and it is only a temporary change, meaning it will expire eventually. In the AIP as well, there is a checklist. So the checklist is nothing more than a master index. Okay, we can call it a master index. And this master index is going to list each AIP page with its effective dates. So it includes the amendments and the supplements, and it is published monthly or quarterly. In India, it is published monthly. So it will look slightly something like this. You can see that the gen, each of the pages is outlined and exactly when they are going to expire, right? So this is just one of the samples where I've gotten one page of the checklist and it will mention exactly when each is valid. Okay, quite cool. And so this is the checklist for the AIP. As I said, there's a digital version of the AIP as well. We call it the EAIP or the Electronic Aeronautical Information Publication. You can find this on the Airport Authority of India website. This is how it is compiled. So it will tell you the currently effective issue, when it is effective from. So it is effective till 6th of August 2026. It was published 25th June. And you can see that on the left hand side, part 1, general, part 2, en route, part 3, aerotoll. Under en route, you can also notice that you have en route 5, where it lists all the prohibited, restricted, danger areas, any obstacles, bird migration areas, and similarly, all the ICAO Annex 2 information can be found in the en route section. You also have other information here which tells you what is the next upcoming issue and also the previous expired issues, along with amendments, significant changes, anything else of the nature that is important to personnel. The next thing is notice to airmen or NOTAMs. So this is a notice that is distributed by telecommunications that contains information on the establishment, condition, or change of any aeronautical facility, service, procedure, or hazard, the timely knowledge of which is essential for flight operations. It is a real-time communication tool that alerts pilots to important temporary or time-sensitive information that has not yet made its way into the AIP or supplements. For example, a sudden runway closure or out of nowhere the instrument landing system becomes unserviceable. There is perhaps a temporary airspace restriction just put in place due to VIP or a military event. So your NOTAMs are any change that is less than 28 days because it will not have time to be put into the AIP. And any change that is less than 28 days is going to be issued as a NOTAM or a notice to airmen. Notice to airmen is a older term that is said. Today they have replaced airmen to air missions to keep it gender neutral. So notice to air missions, you might also see this being said. There are a few NOTAM offices or the international NOTAM offices. They are found, write them down, international or NOF. You can find international NOTAM offices. So you can find international NOTAM offices in Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, and Kolkata. These four states will have an international NOTAM office. Right. Apart from this, we need to look at NOTAM categories. We have three different NOTAM categories. They are N, which is for new, R for replaced, and then you have C for cancelled. So N for new, R for replaced, C for cancelled. With NOTAM N being new, the new is just brand new information being put out. So it's a NOTAM for the first time with brand new information. R means that a previous NOTAM is being replaced with newer information with this NOTAM that is now being published. And C is just a NOTAM that cancels the previous NOTAM in complete full and ends the whatever the temporary change or information that was put forth. After this, we have to take a look at the series also. Each NOTAM has a different series. It is A, B, C, D, and G. With series A, this contains information that is regarding changes or unserviceability of aeronautical facilities that is likely to last more than 2 hours in locations of direct importance to international aircraft operations requiring general international distribution. I'm going to go over each of these with the definitions and then I'm going to explain at the end what it really means, what we really have to know. B contains information regarding changes and unserviceability of aeronautical facilities that is likely to last more than 30 minutes but less than 2 hours for international locations requiring limited distribution to adjacent stations only. Then we have Charlie. Charlie's information regarding the same thing utilized by domestic flights only for which no separate Series A distribution is given. Delta contains information regarding changes unserviceability of aeronautical information facilities, correction, aeronautical facilities for defense controlled aerodrome utilized by domestic flights. And this one is issued by the Air Headquarters or the Air Force via a very, very urgent operational broadcast. And finally, G or Golf, you have information, contains information of general lasting character that affects aircraft operations in general. This is only issued by International NOTAM office in Delhi. All right. Now, let me go over each and tell you. Alpha, it is of international importance. Okay. And it is for aircraft that are likely to be more than 2 hours away. it is going to be sent to those folks as well, along with the ones that are within the 2 hour period. So everybody gets it coming to that specific aerodrome because you do not know when such operation or when such issue at that particular aerodrome is going to last in. So anybody more than 2 hours out within 2 hours is going to get this Series A NOTAM so that they can prepare for it accordingly. Now, Series B is slightly different because here it is information that is likely to last more than 30 minutes but less than 2 hours. Now you're looking at international aircraft that are nearby. So this time the distribution of this NOTAM is going to be very limited in the sense that those who are going to arrive in the next 30 minutes but less than 2 hours are the only people that need to be concerned with this NOTAM being out. Because after that time, then things will resume back to normal, and so aircrafts can continue to land as is. Maybe if somebody is 4 hours out from Delhi airport, then you would not send them a Series B NOTAM because they're 4 hours out. After 2 hours, the work is to be completed anyways, and so the aircrafts can land after that without an issue. Series C is just domestic aircraft. So you just have domestic only. This is as simple as if a Series A is not issued for that particular airport and it is a domestic concern for a NOTAM, then a Series C would be issued. You would be finding this mostly at local airports, the ones that are not international in nature. They would be issuing Charlie series. Then you have Delta, which is for defense controlled aerodromes. So this type of NOTAM is issued actually by the Indian Air Force through a very, very urgent broadcast. Then finally you have Series G. So just write defense here. And Series G is containing information of general lasting character that affects aircraft operations in general. So this means that you are looking at anything that is going to be considered under AIP supplement or AIP amendment. However, you have not had the time to place it into these amendments or supplements at this time. But what you can issue is a notice to airmen or notice to air missions, where this information is distributed by the NOTAM office in Delhi, and it concerns information or changes that are going to be more than 3 months or less than 3 months long. We also have two special types of NOTAMs. Okay. First is a SNOTAM. A SNOTAM is when snow, ice, or standing water or whatever paper AIS. It does not mean you cannot take off or land, but you still can. Just have to exercise appropriate caution. The next is ASHTAM. ASHTAM is volcanic activity, any eruptions, or any high clouds for that matter also. These are also options for ASHTAM. So ASHTAM and SNOTAM are the two special types. In India, SNOTAM is possible. However, it is very uncommon. Usually you would find this in the northern airports and in winter time especially, to maybe an airport like Leh or Srinagar, which would be experiencing snowfall on the aerodrome. And so they can issue a NOTAM accordingly. The last thing we will look at is something known as a trigger NOTAM. So this is a very special type of a NOTAM that is issued to give advance notice of an introduction of a new information or change that will take effect via an AIP amendment or supplement. So a trigger NOTAM tells us slightly in advance that okay, there is an upcoming AIP or amendment that is going to be published. This is what it says. You can take a look for more details in that specific amendment or supplement. Because we, the pilots ourselves, right, flight crew, and even the dispatch and operations team, we're not really going through the AIP amendments or supplements. We're not checking through that fat booklet to make sure that everything is being complied with. And we do not track all the amendments or changes that are made every cycle. So pilots, however, do check the NOTAMs before the flights. We will always take a look at the NOTAMs for our airport where we're going and anything that is there on route. Trigger NOTAM helps us be aware of any new procedures or changes that are going to be coming soon before they formally take effect. So it allows us to be prepared, to have that insight, to have that in mind that yes, this is something that will be taking change on this route. And that is through a trigger NOTAM or a special type of NOTAM that is created to give that alert or that advance notice to us. We come to Aeronautical Information Circular. Now, Aeronautical Information Circular is a notice that contains information which does not qualify for the origination of a NOTAM or for the inclusion in AIP, but it relates to flight safety, air navigation, technical, administrative, or legislative matters. So it's that middle ground of information which does not make sense for NOTAMs, and it does not make sense to be included in AIP. Therefore, it is then included and published by the DGCA as an Aeronautical Information Circular. It provides us non-urgent but essential knowledge for pilots and operators. For example, if you want to go on the DGCA website and you want to check out some aeronautical information circulars, I'll show you what it looks like. This is the page on the DGCA website. And in these documents, you can see that there are things relating to airport tariffs. There is actually, if you scroll even further down to a few years back, you will see that the implementation of DigiYatra is also an aeronautical information circular. And if some of you remember that the 737 MAX crashes that happened, after the two crashes that took place, a lot of the countries completely banned the 737 MAX from being operated in their airspace for the time being. And so that ban itself is published as an aeronautical information circular, and you can actually go on the DGCA website to go backtrack and to find that particular notice. This is all you have to really know about the Aeronautical Information Circular. As I said, it is published by DGCA. All right. So it's a notice that does not fit for AIP or NOTAM, and it is published by the DGCA. So you can find it on the DGCA website itself. These are the three documents or the publications we have. You have the AIP, you have the NOTAM, and you have the Aeronautical Information Circular. We've looked at their purpose, we've looked at their differences. What we're going to take a look at now is how are they distributed in a timely manner? How do we get this information without being on different page or without being on a different page as another operator or another airline? We have something known as an AIRAC or an Aeronautical Information Regulation and Control. This is an international system which is ensuring that critical, operationally significant information is being distributed and implemented simultaneously across the globe. So it is a system which is aimed at advanced notification based on common effective dates of circumstances that necessitates significant changes in operating practices. In other words, anything that is going to affect flight operations or route or flight planning, which affect airlines, air traffic controllers, and the operations or dispatch team, that would be considered as a significant change. Now, with that significant change, we need to have an advance notification so that everybody operates with the same set of data on the same at the same time, right? We do not want that somebody else is operating with outdated data while somebody else has newer data. This just creates flight safety hazards. So AIRAC is the system which gives the crew, the flight crew, the chart makers, the air traffic controllers, the pilots, and the operators enough time to prepare for the changes before they go live itself. And we are going to take a look at how this is all taking effect. What are these common effective dates? So the cycle or the AIRAC cycle is what we're going to be looking at. Now, aviation data does not just randomly change. The AIRAC governs these changes based on a very strict, globally synchronized 28-day cycle. Okay, it is a 28-day cycle. Let me rewrite that. Cycle. To ensure that our systems are safely updated again, ICAO has enforced a very strict timeline for creating and distributing this AIRAC data. So now an AIRAC cycle is actually an ICAO publication or an ICAO Annex 15 specified thing, not a national provision that we in India only follow ourselves. Everybody has to abide by this. So there are common dates that we have to consider. So we have a 28-day cycle. Let's draw this out and I will also same time show it to you. Start the timeline like this. Okay. The first thing is known as the first thing that happens is, well, the publication date. So we have the publication date. What is the publication date? It is the date at which the information is first published. And now this date is actually 42 days before the effective date. So you have another date which is the effective date. Think of effective date as the date on which the change will officially become active. By this date, everybody operating thereafter has to be on the same page, has to have the systems updated. So the change that is coming in will be published how long before? Almost 42 days prior to the effective date. After this is published, there is another date which is of concern. And that date is the, let me make some space here. We call this date the date of last reception. All right, now what is the date of last reception? This is the date by which the information should receive the end users. End users are the airline's operators, owners. So from the date it is published, which is 14 days before, to 28 days before the effective date, you need to send this information out and it should receive the end user. The end user can receive this information digitally as well, and they can also receive this through a hard copy method. In the past, it would have been through a hard copy, and so some time was you had to give some buffer period for the mail and the postal service to appropriately deliver the information to these individuals. So this is the date by when the operators would receive the paper copy version of the change that is coming up. And from the publication date, this is 14 days. So we call this period the distribution time. So we have a 14-day distribution time. Okay. And then 28 days. So after the date of last reception till the effective date, you have 28 days to implement and make the changes in all your aircrafts. Let's take, for example, you have to add a new waypoint. Okay. We have come up with a new waypoint in the Indian airspace. We're calling it Tiger. And we have established, Airport Authority of India has established that this is the exact position. This is where it's going to be there. This is the latitude and longitude. After it has been established, it needs to be added to the navigation database of each and every aircraft. And in order to add it to the aircraft's navigation database, some engineer has to actually go and update it to add the information there. In that case, we need to give some buffer period for all of the aircraft that an airline or an operator owns to be appropriately serviced within that 28-day period. Okay, giving us enough time that an aircraft comes in, is at rest for the next 3-4 hours, during which the engineer comes in and he updates the navigation database, make sure that it is good to go. Now, the navigation database isn't going to be immediately used from that point forward. It will only take effect from the 28 when the 28 days have completed, or the effective date. As soon as it is the effective date, the database will change and will begin using the new changes and everything else that were added. All of the new changes are going to take effect. So this AIRAC cycle ensures that everybody has enough time to make the appropriate changes and then be on the same page when the change is finally made official. However, there are some times when the information is considered quite significant in nature that we need to give some more time for that change to be implemented. In the sense, let's say implemented in the sense that not just for the engineer to update the database, but for airlines to have some time to test that data in their flight simulators, to maybe prepare the flight crew and give them the appropriate sim sessions for that change being made. Let's take, for example, a new ILS procedure at an XYZ airport. If there is a new procedure or a major change in a procedure, an instrument procedure, then airlines need some additional time to train their flight crew appropriately for that, to conduct the sim sessions out of the roster, and to make sure that there are some crew at the effective date who are able to carry out that approach, who are able to carry out that instrument procedure. In such circumstances, you will have something known as a double cycle, or 56 days. The only difference that is made in a 56-day or a double cycle is that one cycle will pass in between where the database is updated for other changes and not this changes. If I can find myself some space, I can try to give you an idea that think of this as one effective date is here. And sometime before that, you would have another publication date. Let's go back forward, and some point here, let's say there's another publication date here. There'll be another date of last reception here. See, D last, we can say. Another 14-day period would exist between them. But from that publication date, from this publication date to the effective date, you are looking at 70 days. And from the date of last reception, I guess you just cross through like this, you would have 56 days for your major information. Okay. And what happens in between that is that let's say this was one AIRAC cycle, one publication date, and one date of last reception. Now, similarly, for any routine or normal change, you would have from date of last reception another 28 days, which would bring you to one cycle where you have maybe routine changes following the normal 28-day cycle. Essentially, this information would not be published after 28 days, but rather after 56 days, where one cycle, which is this cycle maybe, or the one before this, is skipped over, and directly the information is placed on the second cycle or the second 28-day cycle. This would only take place when there is any significant major complex airspace change that is being made, allowing all airlines operators and their owners to have enough time to test that data in their simulator. After this information is published, after the effective date, this information cannot be changed for another 28 days or till the next cycle. So the cycles are taking place every 28 days. Now, from the effective date, the next effective date is going to be 28 days after. After one change has been made, you cannot change it again until the next cycle. So if this is the effective date, then again, sometime before that, there would be a publication date, right? You would have a publication date 42 days before to the next cycle, to the next 28-day cycle from the effective date. Meaning this change or this information that has now been put forth is going to stay for the next 28 days. If any change occurs in between those 28 days, how is that being published? As I said before, anything less than 28 days goes in a NOTAM. So that information or that change would be published as a NOTAM. The NOTAM would eventually expire, and it would be a NOTAM of series G in nature because it is of lasting character. It is being published until the next AIP or supplement can be published through the AIRAC cycle. After the AIRAC cycle occurs, that NOTAM expires, and then the information is updated through the AIP supplement being added or the AIP amendment being added. And then everybody is on the same page once more. Now here's just a little list of all the information that can be published via the AIRAC. I gave you an example that maybe a navigation aid or an instrument procedure has to be changed. There are all of these things which can be there. And when the AIRAC amendment or the AIRAC cycle is published, the authorities also issue a trigger NOTAM. The trigger NOTAM indicates to all flight crew, as I said, that an AIP supplement or an AIP amendment is going to be changed. So that will be issued maybe 10-15 days before the correction, 14 days. So the trigger NOTAM remains active for 14 days after the cycle goes live. So after the cycle is live, 14 days, that trigger NOTAM is there to indicate that this change has just been made. This is what is there, this is what is not there, or this is a change that is going to be coming in next. Okay. And then that trigger NOTAM will automatically expire after that period. All right. So now we have Integrated Aeronautical Information Package or IAIP. This is actually a complete set of aeronautical information services that is provided by each ICAO contracting state. If we really look at it, it's actually just the 5 things that we've covered. We've covered 4. I'll tell you what else we have missed out next. What else we've looked at that is being provided by the state. We know that AIPs are there. And under the AIPs, we have amendments being provided. And we also have supplements that we covered. Then we have our NOTAM. We looked at the AIC. We also are going to look at something next, which is the pre-flight information bulletin, or PIB. I will cover this next. And we saw checklists and summaries. So we saw checklists mainly, but there are also summaries that are sometimes also published. The checklist is like a master index. You will find a checklist for AIC. If you go back to that image where I shared, you will see that there was a checklist every year of the aeronautical information circulars in effect. We saw that for AIP, the checklist was there, and that is what it is included here. The summaries are also something similar in nature. Pre-flight information bulletin, we are going to take a look at next. And so you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 components of the integrated aeronautical information package. And what Airport Authority of India is really doing is that they're actually compiling an IAIP all together in one position. They're also including the aeronautical information circulars on their website as a redirect, meaning when you click on the AIC on their website, it actually takes you over to the DGCA's page. But they're compiling it all on one website. So you can see the AIP, you can see the NOTAMs, you can see the AICs, and you can see all the other things one place all together. So it is like a compiled summary of all the current NOTAMs, of all the AIP changes, and all the updates that are there. And finally, we come to the pre-flight information bulletin. So this is aeronautical information that is made available to flight operations personnel for route stages originating at the aerodrome. Basically, it is information or up-to-date information for my particular planned flight. And it is provided to me prior to the departure itself. Now, what does the PIB include? It will include the IAIP. So all of the information that was provided in the IAIP, the NOTAMs, the AIP, the amendments, the supplements, the AICs, that as well as maps and charts. Any maps and charts relevant to my particular flight or my particular route. So it is actually a compiled summary of all the NOTAMs, of all the AIPs, of all the AICs that affect a specific flight, and it is provided to me in plain language. So think of it like a filtered and personalized version of the integrated aeronautical information package. Only it's information that only I need to know. Right? Whatever information from that stuff I need to know is going to be there. It is going to be produced. So the PIB is produced at 4 hubs: Kolkata, Chennai, Delhi, Mumbai. And these central airports act like the absolute authority for their region. And also they have the international NOTAM offices located there. So these guys will produce the pre-flight information bulletin for your particular flight. Take for example, I'll give you an example of how it works. You have maybe a Delhi to London flight. What all information will you be provided as part of the PIB? Well, you can actually see, if it was up to you, you would be looking at everything in Delhi that is happening. You would be looking through so many different documents to see what is relevant, what affects you, and what does not affect you. But what PIB does is it makes sure that you get information about Delhi, about the route you're taking, and about London itself, or London Heathrow. You might get, for Delhi, you might have in the PIB itself, it says there's a Series A NOTAM for an ILS outage at Delhi. Now, why do you concern with an instrument landing system outage in Delhi? Because what if you depart and you have to return? You might decide to use the ILS only to find out it is not available. It is inconvenient. So what we will do is, having this information beforehand lets you prepare accordingly for the contingency procedures. Let's say on your route, when you enter the Kabul FIR, there is a restriction due to military activity that will be provided in the PIB. As you enter the Eurocontrol FIR, and you get a in the PIB, it says that you might have to expect a congestion due to French ATC being on strike. So that is something you are now prepared for. And at Heathrow, you get a snow time alert because the runway is got contaminated due to snow or ice being there. In the PIB, let's say it's like 1 or 2 pages long, and it's just information that concerns you and your flight. Okay, so it is that filtered and personalized version that only I need to worry about. That is it for PIB. That is it for the chapter itself. That is it for Aeronautical Information Services. So I hope you understood, and I hope I made it clear as to how the publications are made, how they are filtered, how they are distributed. And I hope to see you guys in the next lecture as well then. So have a good day. Bye bye.